Hey, how's it going, everyone? Your friend Dean Kulaweera here. If you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you hit me up with a like and a subscribe. Appreciate you watching this video. If you're listening to this on one of the podcasting platforms, whether it's Anchor or Spotify or one of those other places, appreciate you tuning in. And I'm always putting on new job search content to help everyone out there in their job search, practical, pragmatic stuff. So make sure you hit me up with a subscribe. I promise you won't be disappointed, all right? So today what I wanted to speak about is, these somewhat, some people call these kind of outdated or nonsensical questions, right? Why do interviewers ask, what are your weaknesses? Or why would they ask, what are your flaws? Now, I have job seekers asking me about this, like, I don't know for how many years now, right? And it's a common concern or inquiry many of you ask me about. And even just recently, I was responding to questions on Quora. I love Quora, by the way. If you're on Quora, make sure you follow me. I'll drop a link in the description. If you want to follow me on there, I'm always responding to questions that job seekers have. And I recently had a question on there as well, where someone was like, "What is the point of an interviewer asking, what are your top 3 character flaws?" Like, if you tell someone your character flaws, doesn't that make you less desirable as a potential employee? And it's a great question, right? Because if you just judge these type of questions at face value, folks, it probably doesn't make any sense, right? Like, why would you want to highlight your weaknesses? Why would you want to highlight your flaws? So this is where I want you folks to make a real important mental shift, all right? And that is, do not judge, do not assess, do not take these questions at face value. The interviewer, I mean, of course, they're going to be listening to what your weaknesses are and what your flaws are. Maybe they might want to take that into consideration. But what they're mostly looking for, folks, is 2 things. All right, 2 things when it comes to these weaknesses and these flaws. Thing number 1 is they want to see how self-aware you are. How self-aware, like how much self-awareness do you have? Because look, if you have an area of weakness or a flaw or something, the first step in addressing it, which I'm going to get to in point number 2, is the first step is self-awareness. If you're not aware of what your shortcomings are, what your areas of improvement are, then you're not going to be probably the most ideal employee, right? If you think of it from the employer's standpoint. Because if you're someone who's self-aware, it's going to make you much easier to manage, much easier to provide you with constructive criticism, right? And it just means also that you're a much better investment as well, because you're self-aware, you're aware of what your shortcomings are, you're willing to confront them, and you understand that you do have some weaknesses and flaws and areas of improvement. Now, you at the same time, you do not want to leave it at just that, right? Which brings me to point number 2. Point number 2 is, what steps are you taking or have you taken to address these areas of weakness, flaws, areas where you need to improve yourself or make certain adjustments and stuff like that. That is the second component, and it's just, if not equally as important as the first component, right? So self-awareness is one thing, but the second part is what they're looking for is how to what degree do you take initiative? To what degree do you take responsibility for improving these areas of weakness that you might have? Because that's another quality of a great employee, right? From the employer's standpoint. It's one thing if someone knows, okay, I'm not good at XYZ, but it's another thing when that person knows, okay, I'm XYZ is an area I'm not really good at, and this is what I'm going to be doing to address these areas and improve myself. So when you're responding to these questions, what are your top weaknesses? What are your greatest flaws? Stuff like that. Make sure you're hitting these 2 components. Number 1, you want to show self-awareness. So don't try and come up with some cute, witty response. Don't try and say, oh, my greatest weakness is I work too hard. No one's falling for that, folks. All right, they're just gonna roll their eyes. If not visually, they're gonna roll their eyes inside their head, right? Don't try and come up with something like that. Be sincere. Like, talk about some weakness you genuinely have or had, or that you still have, that you continuously improve on. So that shows the self-awareness part, right? Step number 2 is you got to show that you're taking initiative to address this weakness or whatever this area of required improvement is. Because it's one thing having a weakness, but it's another thing that you're not taking any initiative to address this area. Right? So you got to make sure it hits that second component as well, because they're going to be looking for that. They're going to be checking for that. Is this someone that takes initiative? Is this someone that steps up to the plate? Is this someone that takes responsibility for their shortcomings? Because someone like that is going to make one heck of an employee, right? An amazing, fantastic investment. So let's say let's say I'm responding to this question, and my area of weakness is multitasking. Right? Let's say that's an area of weakness I have. So I would say, well, an area of weakness that I have that I continuously work on is my ability to multitask. This is typically an area that I used to always struggle with, and it's something that I was aware of that I needed to take steps in improving. So what I've done to address this ongoing weakness of mine is I'm continuously reading books and watching videos, and I've even taken a course online where I was taught about best practices on how to better multitask. And this and this and this are some of the things that I do to be a better multitasker. And I continuously do this to this day, and I continuously take courses and make sure I pay attention to this, because this is a weakness of mine. And these are the steps that I've taken to address this, so that I'm able to still perform excellently in the role that I'm working at and get results for my employer. Right now, I just came up with that on the spot, folks, but you get the point, right? You get the idea. You got to address that self-awareness. You got to show you're self-aware. And the second extremely important component, folks, is what steps you're taking to address this area of weakness or this flaw that you have. Folks, I can't say it enough. You have to address these two components. Extremely important when you're talking about your weaknesses and your flaws, because that's really what the interviewer, the employer, the recruiter is really looking for, all right? So, hey, hope this information helps. If you found it helpful, hit me up with a like, hit me up with a subscribe if you're watching this on YouTube, or any other platform I might post this video on. And if you're listening to this on Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, whatever other platform it is, hey, if you want regular job search content, I'm your guy. Make sure you hit me up with a subscribe. And I'll drop a link for all my other social channels as well. I love to have everyone follow me on all my other social channels. I put content like all the time. I'm obsessed with putting out the job search content. So hope everyone benefits from that out there. And hey, by the way, if one of your biggest challenges is you're applying for jobs, you're not getting responses, and I'm talking, you've been applying for jobs for months and months, and you're not getting any responses, or nowhere as near as many responses as you'd like, make sure you get on my free masterclass. Okay, I talk about why this is happening and what you need to be doing and how you need to be approaching your job search to improve your chances of getting responses. Because the first statistic, the most important statistic in any job search, folks, is the number of responses you're getting. Because if you're not getting responses, you can't move into the remainder of the job search process, which is interviews, second interviews, third interviews, and final interviews, and then finally the offer letter. So the first stat you got to improve is number of responses, and that's what I address in my masterclass. So make sure you check it out to find out why that might be happening and what 3 steps you need to be taking in your job search to improve those stats, all right? So hey, thanks so much for watching. Hit me up with a like, hit me up with a subscribe for more job search content, and have a fantastic weekend, folks, all right? Stay proactive, keep pushing through.